Daniel had lived on the frontier for so many years that he sometimes forgot what it felt like to speak to another person for more than a few minutes. His days were simple and quiet. He woke before sunrise, fed the horses, checked the fences, repaired whatever needed fixing, and ended each day by sitting alone on his porch, watching the land turn gold under the setting sun. He had grown used to silence. It was comfortable, predictable, and safe. But deep down, he knew he could not live the rest of his life like this. The long winters felt colder every year. The long summers felt emptier. And when night came, he sometimes caught himself talking to the horses just to avoid the sound of his own loneliness. That was why he finally wrote the letter. It was not an easy decision, but it was an honest one. He wanted a partner, not excitement, not trouble. Just a simple frontier bride who would help him build a family and share the weight of life on the land. He imagined someone calm, gentle, maybe shy. Someone who would understand quiet living. Someone who would not mind the long hours or the rough hands of a rancher who had worked the earth since. He was a boy. Weeks passed after he sent the letter. But one morning a small envelope arrived at the general store with his name carefully written on it. Inside was a reply that his request had been accepted, and a woman named Alina would arrive on the morning train by the end of the month. Daniel read the letter again and again, feeling a strange mix of nervousness and relief. At last he would no longer eat meals alone. At last the house would not feel so empty. He hoped she would like the ranch. He hoped she would fit in. More than anything, he hoped she would be happy. The morning she was set to arrive felt different from any morning before. Daniel woke early, even earlier than usual, and washed up in cold water from the basin. He changed into his cleanest shirt and brushed his hair until it looked somewhat presentable. The ride to the small frontier station was quiet, the only sound being the steady beat of his horse's hooves on dry earth. As he approached the station, he saw a thin line of white steam stretching above the horizon. The train was coming. Daniel tied his horse and stood near the wooden platform. A few other people waited for the train, but most were travelers passing through. No one seemed to be looking for him, and he wondered what she would look like. He expected someone modestly dressed, perhaps holding a small suitcase, someone who kept her gaze low and her voice soft, someone who fit the picture he had formed in his head over the past weeks. The train slowed, metal wheels screeching gently, and clouds of dust rose in the warm morning light. One by one, passengers stepped down. Daniel watched carefully. Then he saw her. She did not look anything like he had imagined. She did not move like a timid woman from the east. She stepped down with confidence, her boots hitting the platform with steady strength. Her dark hair was loose, wild in the wind, falling in waves around her shoulders. She did not hide her face. Her eyes were bright, sharp, full of life and curiosity. Her clothes were simple, but well-worn, like someone who had traveled far and was not afraid of dust or long roads. She scanned the crowd, not with the nervousness of someone afraid, but with the calm of someone who trusted herself. Daniel almost forgot to breathe. For a moment, he wondered if he was mistaken. This woman looked like she belonged in open country, not in a quiet house helping with chores. She looked fearless, bold, like the kind of person who ran with the wind rather than waited behind a door. But then her eyes met his, and she smiled as if she already knew who he was. "Daniel?" she asked, her voice steady and warm. He nodded slowly. "You must be Alina." She gave a small laugh, the kind that came naturally, without hesitation. "Yes, it's good to finally meet you." Daniel took her luggage, though she carried less than he expected, and helped her onto his horse. She rode behind him, holding lightly to the saddle instead of clinging to him. That surprised him too. Most women would have held on tightly, but she seemed perfectly balanced, as if she had spent half her life on horseback. As they rode away from town, Daniel felt a strange twisting inside him. He did not know what to say. Every sentence he rehearsed in his mind felt too stiff, too simple. Alina did not seem bothered by the silence, though. She watched the land with interest, pointing out small things he had not noticed in years, the way light shined on a patch of wildflowers, the flight of hawks circling above the shape of distant hills. She spoke with quiet wonder, not in a loud or dramatic way, but as though she saw the land through fresh eyes. Daniel felt a little embarrassed that he had missed these details for so long. He had walked this land all his life, yet she seemed to see beauty in every direction. After an hour of riding, they reached the ranch. It was nothing fancy, just a wooden house, a barn, a few sheds, and wide fields stretching toward the horizon. Daniel felt nervous showing it to her, worried she would think it was too simple or too lonely. But Alina smiled as soon as she saw it. "It's peaceful," she said softly, "and strong. It's the kind of place a person can build a future." Her words eased something in Daniel's chest. He helped her down from the horse and carried her things inside. She walked around the house slowly, touching the smooth wooden railing, looking out the windows with interest, examining the small kitchen and the stone fireplace. She did not comment on the simplicity of the place or the lack of decorations. Instead, she said, "It feels honest." Daniel had never thought of a house as honest, but hearing her say it made him look at it differently. She had a way of making ordinary things seem special. As the day went on, Daniel tried to show her the ranch gently where the horses slept, the small garden near the back, the shed where tools were kept. Alina listened carefully, but she also wandered off at times, crouching near a berry bush or petting a horse that usually stayed away from strangers. Somehow, the horse trusted her within moments. Daniel stood there watching with quiet surprise. Alina had a calm but fearless presence, the kind that animals understood. That evening, Daniel prepared a simple supper. He expected silence or awkwardness, but Alina talked icily, asking about the land, his work, and the years he spent alone. He answered slowly, feeling unsure how much to share. She told him a little about her past, not everything. Just enough to show she had grown up around open land and learned early how to stay strong. What surprised Daniel most was how naturally she smiled. It was a warm smile that made the room feel brighter. He realized he had forgotten how much a smile could change a space. When night fell and the lamps were lit, Daniel found himself staring at the wall instead of directly at her. He did not want to make her uncomfortable, but he kept thinking how different she was from what he expected. He had wanted a simple bride who blended quietly into his routine. Instead, he had received a bright, bold woman who carried the spirit of the frontier in her eyes. A woman who did not shrink from the world but faced it with open strength. Before going to her room, Alina paused beside him. Her voice was soft but clear. "Thank you for bringing me here, Daniel. I know this must be a big change. It is for me too, but I'm glad to be here." Her words stayed with him long after she went to sleep. Daniel sat alone by the dim lamp, feeling the unfamiliar warmth in his chest. He had not expected this. He had not planned for it. But from the moment he saw her step off the train, he knew one thing for certain. His quiet life would never be the same again. The next morning, Daniel woke earlier than usual. He had barely slept, not because of discomfort, but because his mind kept returning to Alina, her confident steps, her curious eyes, and the calm strength in her voice. He had lived alone for so long that even the soft sound of another person breathing in the house felt strange and new. He wondered how she was adjusting. The frontier was rough, the ranch was simple, and life here demanded patience, hard work, and a strong heart. Daniel stepped outside to begin his usual chores. But as soon as he reached the barn, he stopped in surprise. Alina was already awake. Not only awake, she was feeding the horses, brushing their coats gently, and speaking to them in a soft, warm voice. The horses, who normally moved away from strangers, stood close to her, as if they trusted her completely. "You're up early," Daniel said, trying not to show how impressed he felt. Alina turned with a smile. "I couldn't sleep long. The sunrise looked too beautiful, and I heard the horses. They sounded restless, so I thought I would calm them." Daniel nodded slowly. He wanted to say thank you, but the words felt stuck. He watched her move with natural grace, her hands steady, her steps sure. She fit into the morning as if she had been here for years, not just one day. They worked side by side for an hour, sometimes talking, sometimes silent. There was no awkwardness, just a quiet understanding that work needed to be done. Daniel showed her how to lift the hay, how to check the fence lines for damage, and how to gather the eggs from the small chicken coop. Alina listened carefully, but also tried things on her own, sometimes doing them differently, but still managing well. At one point, Daniel noticed her studying a broken fence post. Before he could say anything, she pushed her shoulder against it, testing the weight and the damage. "It's loose at the bottom," she said. "It won't hold through the next storm." Daniel smiled a little. "You can see that." "I grew up fixing things like this," she replied. "My father always said land teaches a person if they're willing to listen." There it was. Again, that quiet strength. She was not simply brave. She understood the land in a way that was rare. As the morning went on, Daniel realized he was watching her more than he should. Forgetting simple tasks because he kept thinking about how different she was from the picture he had imagined. He had expected a gentle, soft-spoken bride who would follow rules and routines exactly as he taught them. Instead, he had someone who added her own energy and spirit into everything she touched. Later, when they were inside preparing breakfast, Alina accidentally spilled some flour while trying to mix dough. For a moment, Daniel thought she might get frustrated, but instead she laughed a warm, light sound that filled the whole kitchen. She brushed the flour off her hands and tried again, this time more carefully. "You're not upset?" Daniel asked. "It's just flour," she said with a shrug. "Life is easier when we don't get angry about small things." Daniel looked at her with quiet admiration. He had spent years worrying about order, timing, and doing everything perfectly. Alina, on the other hand, accepted mistakes with ease. After breakfast, they walked out to the far pasture. Alina kept stopping to look at flowers, rocks, or animal tracks. She knelt beside a small print in the dirt, her eyes bright. "Deer," she said with certainty. "A young one. Maybe passed by during the night." Daniel looked closer. He had walked past those tracks many times before and never noticed them. "How do you know so quickly?" he asked. Alina smiled. "Tracks tell stories, you just need to pay attention." He continued walking until they reached the old spring. Daniel had not visited it in months. He expected it to be dry or muddy, but instead it was clear and flowing. Alina stepped close to the edge, kneeling to touch the water. "It's beautiful here," she said quietly. "It must be peaceful in summer." "Sometimes," Daniel replied, feeling a little ashamed that he had ignored such a lovely spot. "I guess I forgot to come here." "You work too hard," Alina said gently. "Even the land rests sometimes." Her words touched him more deeply than he expected. For years, he had poured all his energy into maintaining the ranch, thinking it was the only way to survive. No one had ever told him to slow down. No one had ever noticed he was tired. In the afternoon, they returned to the house to prepare lunch. While chopping vegetables, Alina asked him questions, not heavy or personal, but thoughtful ones. "What made you choose this life?" Daniel thought for a moment. "I grew up here. The land felt familiar. I guess I stayed because it was home, and now," she asked softly. He looked at her, unsure how much to share. "Now, I want something more than just work. I want someone to share the days with." Alina listened quietly, her expression warm. She did not laugh or look away. She simply understood. Daniel felt grateful for that. After lunch, Alina went outside again, wandering near the horses. Daniel cleaned the kitchen, but kept finding himself glancing out the window. He didn't know why she affected him so much. Maybe because she was so different from his quiet world. Maybe because she carried a sense of freedom he had forgotten existed. At one point, he stepped outside to check on her. She stood near the fence line, watching the sky. Birds flew in wide circles overhead, and Alina lifted her face slightly, as if she could feel the wind shift. "What are you thinking?" Daniel asked. "That the world is bigger than we remember," Alina replied. "Sometimes we get stuck in routines and forget to look up." Daniel felt those words settle into him deeply. She was right. He had spent years walking the same path, doing the same tasks, never stopping to appreciate the small wonders around him. Later in the day, Alina asked if she could help with the evening tasks. Daniel tried to keep her away from the heavier work, but Alina insisted she wanted to learn everything about ranch life. She carried buckets of water, helped stack firewood, and even tried to fix the loose fence post she had pointed out earlier. Daniel watched her carefully, making sure she didn't strain herself. But she handled everything with determination. When the sun began to set, they stood together near the barn, watching the horizon turn gold and pink. Daniel felt a quiet calm settle around them. "It's beautiful," Alina whispered. Daniel nodded. "It always is, but today it looks different." Alina looked at him with gentle curiosity. "Different how?" Daniel hesitated, then said softly, "Maybe because I'm not alone." Alina's smile was warm, steady. "You're not." They walked back to the house, and Daniel felt something shift inside him. He had expected their first days together to feel awkward, maybe even difficult. Yet instead, everything felt natural. He wasn't sure why emotions came so quickly, or why her presence filled the empty spaces of his home so easily. But one thing was clear: he had never met anyone like her. That night, after they finished dinner, Alina sat quietly near the fire, mending a small tear in her sleeve. Daniel watched her hands, her calm posture, the soft glow of the fire reflecting in her eyes. For a moment, he wondered if she felt the same growing connection he felt. Before she went to her room, Alina spoke softly. "Daniel, it was a good day." He swallowed lightly. "Yes, it was." She looked at him, her eyes gentle but filled with something unspoken. "Thank you for being patient with me." "You didn't need patience," he replied quietly. "You fit here better than I expected." Her smile was slow, warm, full of quiet gratitude. "I'm glad." When she left the room, Daniel remained sitting by the fire, his thoughts busy. Their days together were still just beginning, but already he felt his old rules weakening. Alina didn't follow the picture he had imagined. She was stronger, freer, and far more alive than anything he had prepared himself for, and without meaning. Too, she was slowly capturing his heart, one quiet moment at a time. The third day on the ranch began quietly, with a sky that looked calm but carried a strange heaviness in the air. Daniel felt it the moment he stepped outside. The wind was unusually still, and the birds were silent. He had lived on the frontier long enough to know that silence like this often meant something was wrong or something was coming. Alina joined him a few minutes later, tying her hair back as she walked out of the house. "It feels different today," she said softly. Daniel looked at her, surprised she sensed it too. "Yes, the air is too still." They fed the horses, checked the barn, and started their daily chores. But Daniel's mind kept wandering. He noticed fresh hoofprints near the tree line, deeper and more space than a normal horse's step. He crouched down to study them, and Alina knelt beside him. "These are new," she said without hesitation. Daniel nodded. "Not ours, and not from a traveler passing by." Alina straightened slowly. "Then someone was close to the ranch during the night." Daniel felt a tightness grow in his chest. The frontier could be peaceful, but it also had dangerous stray drifters, thieves, or men with no respect for land or people. He did not want trouble near Alina, not when she was still adjusting to this place. They finished their chores, but both of them kept glancing toward the edges of the ranch. After lunch, Daniel saddled his horse to check the far pastures. Alina insisted on coming with him. At first, Daniel wanted to refuse. He wanted her to stay safe at the house, but her determined expression made him stop. "I won't slow you down," she said. "I can help." He hesitated, then nodded. "Stay close to me." They rode through tall grass, the sound of the horses' steps the only noise in the quiet field. Alina kept her eyes sharp, scanning the edges of the land the same way she had scanned the train platform on the day they met. She had a natural awareness, something Daniel admired more each day. After nearly an hour, they found what Daniel feared: broken branches, trampled grass, and the distinct prints of 3 or 4 horses. Someone had been moving close to the ranch, watching or waiting. Alina studied the ground carefully. They weren't moving fast. They were looking around. Daniel felt a coldness spread across his heart. She was right. He had hoped it was travelers passing by. But now he knew better. They rode back to the ranch quickly. Daniel checked the gates, the barn doors, and the fences again, making sure everything was secure. Alina helped without needing instructions. She worked calmly, not with fear, but with a steady sense of purpose. As they finished, she turned to him. "We should be prepared." Daniel paused, looking at her. "You're not scared?" Alina shook her head. "I've seen danger before. Fear doesn't help. Staying alert does." Her words gave Daniel more strength than she knew. He nodded slowly. "Then we stay alert." Evening arrived quietly, too quietly. Daniel lit the lamps inside and kept watch through the windows. Alina sat at the table, sharpening a small tool for the ranch work, though Daniel could tell she was listening carefully to every sound outside. When the first noise came, it was faint a soft thud near the barn. Daniel stood immediately, and Alina rose without hesitation. She moved closer, her eyes calm but sharp. "I'll check the front," Daniel whispered. "I'll watch the back," Alina said. Daniel wanted to tell her no, to keep her inside where he could protect her, but she had already moved to the back door. Her footsteps were quiet and steady. He realized again that she was not a fragile woman from a soft life. She had her own strength, her own courage. Daniel stepped outside into the cool night air. The moon was faint behind thin clouds. Shadows stretched across the ground, turning familiar shapes into uneasy outlines. He walked toward the barn, keeping his steps silent. Then he heard a whisper of movement, the sound of hooves shifting in the dirt. "Who's there?" Daniel called, his voice loud enough to warn but calm enough to hide fear. A figure stepped out from the side of the barn, then another. Two men, rough-looking with worn clothes and unfriendly eyes. More shapes moved behind them. Daniel counted 3, maybe 4. "We don't want trouble," Daniel said steadily. One of the men gave a mocking laugh. "We ain't here for talk. We saw your horses. Fine animals. Thought we'd take one, maybe more." Daniel took a step forward, blocking their view of the barn. "You won't be taking anything from my land." The leader smirked. "You're alone. What are you going to do?" Before Daniel could answer, another voice came from behind the men, a clear, steady voice. "He's not alone." Lena stepped out from the shadows near the fence. The men turned quickly, surprised to see her. She stood tall, her expression calm but firm, her eyes sharp as cold morning light. She didn't look afraid. She looked ready. Daniel felt his chest tighten with both worry and pride. She had come out to help without hesitation. "What's this?" one of the drifters said with a sneer. "You let your woman do the watching for you?" Alina didn't flinch. "I watch what matters, and this land matters." The men shifted uncomfortably. Something about her confidence unsettled them. She didn't shout, didn't threaten, she simply stood firm, like someone who knew the land better than they did. The leader stepped closer to Daniel. "Move aside. We don't want to fight." Daniel held his ground. "Then leave my land." For a moment, no one moved. The wind picked up slightly, rustling the dry grass. Then Alina spoke again, her voice low and even. "You should go. You won't get what you came for. And if you stay, the nearest town will hear what you tried. You won't want them searching for you." Her words made the men exchange uneasy glances. They didn't know how much help Daniel had nearby. They didn't know how much Alina had seen or understood. After a tense moment, the leader spat on the ground. "Fine, but this isn't the end." Daniel stepped forward, his jaw tight. "It is leave." The men backed away, climbing onto their horses. They rode off into the darkness, muttering curses, but they did not look back. When their shapes finally disappeared into the night, Daniel released the breath he had been holding. Alina walked up beside him. "Are you all right?" Daniel turned to her, his heart still pounding. "I should be asking you that." Alina shook her head gently. "I'm fine. I wasn't going to let you stand here alone." Daniel stared at her, truly seeing her strength. She had acted with calm, smart judgment. She had not panicked or frozen. She had stood with him as a partner. "You were brave," Daniel said quietly. Alina met his eyes with a steady gaze. "I wasn't brave. I just didn't want anything to happen to you or the ranch." Her honesty struck him deeply. For the first time since she arrived, Daniel reached out slowly, letting his hand rest on her arm. Alina didn't pull away. She looked at him with soft eyes, full of sincerity. "Thank you," he said. She smiled, a warm, gentle smile that reached her eyes. "We protected the ranch together. That's how it should be." Daniel felt something shift inside him, something strong, something undeniable. He realized in that moment that he did not just admire her. He trusted her. He needed her. He cared for her in a way he had not expected so soon. As they walked back to the house, the night felt lighter. The danger had passed. But something new had begun. something deeper than words could explain. Daniel knew his rules. His plans, his quiet expectations, all of them, were slowly falling away. Elena's wild beauty, her courage, her steady heart, they were capturing him completely, one moment at a time. The morning after the long night felt strangely peaceful. The sunlight was soft, the air was cool, and the sky was clear, as if the land itself wanted to calm their hearts. Daniel stepped out to the porch and breathed deeply, letting the fresh air fill his chest. For years, he woke every day with the same steady rhythm, but today felt different. Something had shifted inside him. Something had grown between him and Elena. Something quiet but strong. As he walked toward the barn, he found Elena already there, brushing one of the horses with slow, gentle strokes. She turned when she heard his footsteps and gave him a small, warm smile, one that made his heartbeat change in a way he couldn't explain. "You slept?" Daniel asked softly. "A little," Elena said, but it was enough. "I feel fine." Daniel nodded. He wanted to say more, to thank her again for standing with him the night before, but words felt too small. Instead, he picked up a brush and began helping her with the horses. They worked in silence for a while, but it was a comfortable silence. It's the kind that felt natural and full. Finally, Elena spoke. "I was thinking about what happened last night." Daniel glanced at her. "I was too." "It made something clear to me," she continued. "This place is more than a ranch. It's a home. And a home needs two people to protect it, not one." Daniel felt a gentle warmth fill his chest. "You've protected it better than most people I've known." She smiled slightly and looked down, as if a little shy for the first time since arriving. "I only did what felt right." Her honesty touched him deeply. He watched her for a moment, noticing the calm strength in her eyes and the way she carried herself with quiet confidence. He had never met anyone like her, someone strong and gentle at the same time. Someone who made the land feel more alive just by walking across it. After they finished with the animals, they checked the fences and the far gate. Daniel expected Elena to stay close to him after the danger, but she walked with the same steady step as always. She pointed out a broken branch near the creek, followed fresh deer tracks, and even spotted a fox darting into the brush. Every time she discovered something, she shared it with him, almost like she was showing him pieces of the land he hadn't noticed in years. At midday, they returned to the house. Daniel prepared lunch while Elena cleaned the table. As they sat across from each other, Daniel noticed she kept glancing out the window, her expression thoughtful. "You're quiet today," he said gently. Elena looked up, her eyes soft. "I'm thinking about us." Daniel felt his breath catch. It wasn't a surprise he had been thinking about them too, but hearing her say it made his heart beat faster. "What about us?" he asked quietly. "Though we came from different worlds," she said. "You lived alone for so long. I lived a life full of moving, learning, and changing. I wasn't sure we could fit together." Daniel listened carefully, every word sinking deep into him. "But last night," Elena continued, "I saw something important. You didn't walk away. You faced danger without fear. And you didn't let me face it alone. That means more than anything else." Daniel felt a quiet strength grow inside him. "I couldn't let anything happen to you." Elena held his gaze. "I know. And that's why I feel safe here." The room felt warm, not from the fire, but from the closeness between them. Daniel realized the feelings he had been trying to ignore, feelings that grew each day, were now too strong to hide. After lunch, they walked outside to check the horses again. This time, Elena stopped near the fence and leaned her hands on the top rail, looking out at the open field. The wind moved gently through her hair, and Daniel thought she looked like she belonged to the land itself. "Elena," he said softly as he stepped beside her. She turned to him with calm eyes. "I didn't know what to expect when I sent for a bride." Daniel began slowly. "I thought I needed someone quiet, someone who wouldn't shake up my life, someone simple." Elena watched him without interrupting, her expression patient. "But I was wrong," he continued, his voice low but steady. "What I needed was someone strong, someone who sees the world with open eyes, someone who reminds me that life is more than work and silence." A gentle breath escaped Elena's lips, almost like a sigh of relief. "You changed this ranch," Daniel said. You changed me." Alina looked down for a moment, her fingers brushing lightly against the wooden rail. "I didn't want to change you. I just wanted to be myself. That's what changed everything," Daniel replied. She lifted her eyes again, and Daniel saw something warm and hopeful in them. They stood there for a long moment, saying nothing but understanding everything. Later that afternoon, the sheriff from the nearest town arrived to ask questions about the drifters. Daniel told him what happened, and Alina stood beside him, confirming what she saw. The sheriff promised they would patrol the area and keep a lookout. When he left, Daniel noticed Alina watching the horizon thoughtfully. "Everything will be all right now," he told her. "I know," she said. "But even if trouble comes again, I won't be afraid." Daniel nodded. "Neither will I. Not as long as you're here." Alina looked at him with a gentle smile that said more than words. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in soft colors, they walked back to the house together. Daniel gathered firewood, and Alina prepared supper. They moved around each other easily, like to people who had found a shared rhythm without needing to speak. After supper, they sat near the fire. The glow of the flames reflected softly on Alina's face, and Daniel felt a quiet courage rise in him. "Alina," he said, his voice steady but warm. She turned toward him. "Yes, I want you to stay," he said. "Not because of the ranch, not because of the work, but because I want you here with me." Alina's eyes softened, her expression turning tender. "I want to stay," she whispered. "I chose this place because I felt something here, something strong." Daniel exhaled slowly, feeling a rush of relief and joy. "I didn't plan for this," he admitted. "But you captured my heart, Alina. You broke the walls I built around myself without even trying." Alina reached out gently, placing her hand over his. Her touch was soft but sure. "You captured mine too," she said. "Not with words, but with your honesty. With your quiet strength." They sat with their hands together, the warmth of the fire surrounding them like a gentle embrace. That night, the world outside was peaceful. No danger, no shadows. Just the quiet hum of the wind across the land, and inside the small wooden house, two hearts that had come from different worlds finally found where they belonged. The next morning, they walked to the small chapel in the nearby town. It wasn't planned, yet it felt natural. They exchanged simple words of respect, trust, and shared life. There was no crowd, no noise, no grand celebration. Just them. When they returned home as husband and wife, the ranch felt different, warmer, fuller, alive. Alina tended the horses with a soft smile. Daniel repaired the fence with newfound lightness. They worked together, laughed together, stayed with love and strength. Daniel had once expected a simple frontier bride. Instead, he found a partner with a brave heart, wild beauty, and a spirit stronger than any storm. And he knew, without any doubt, that fate had given him exactly what he needed. Not what he expected, but what his heart had always been waiting for.